All right, so the skills we're going to learn here hopefully will help you out to convert your rough drawing that we did in Google Drawings into a comprehensive final design in Illustrator, which can then be printed at high resolution and that type of thing. So here is our example here that we're going to try to copy. You can download it and reference it on your secondary screen. I'm going to kind of get started again though. So anybody starting today, you'll see the screen when you start. We started yesterday and we made our document 2.5 by 3.5, which was the final size of our trading card. All right, we're going to actually create another artboard today, and that's going to include some of the other stuff that we have for the lesson. So starting off, and also we wanted to make sure our units were in inches. All right, so we have 2.5 wide, 3.5 tall inches, and you want to name it. So I'm going to actually call this Illustrator Practice. I did say that you could kind of work with your trading card inside of the other document. Actually, you know what, let's keep this, we're going to go, instead of being the print size, because we can come back and do that afterwards, I'm just going to use the letter preset. That takes a lot of the stuff out of there. We did talk about presets, so letter, you know, in points, we are a little harder to understand, so if we just switched it to inches, we would see it's 8.5 by 11. All right, that'll give us a little more room. We will talk about the artboards today a little bit if we wanted to make separate pages. I know some of you do have a backside that you were going to do for your trading card, so that would be helpful for that. All right, but we'll just go to this and we'll create that. So now we have this blank document. All right, and I can go, I have my reference up here as a separate tab. So, and that's something you could do. If you wanted to make a totally separate document for this practice activity, and then you can work on your trading card in the other tab, that would be at the correct size, right? So maybe actually for this practice activity, you do want to make a new document to the letter size so you can fit everything in there a little bit better. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, and as I said, I'm just going to go top to bottom. I think that's going to just be, for me, I think the most orderly thing to do there with that. So we're going to start and we're going to make our title at the top just with a simple text box. All right, so if I kind of click and drag, this is called a, what do they call this? The area type, because we're designating the area that we want the type to fill. So that's one way you can set your type, or you can just kind of click and it'll make point type, as it's called. And let's call this Illustrator Practice. All right, I'm going to zoom in, Control plus. All right, I put some keyboard shortcuts in the notes also. All right, so if you look on the notes, that's going to be, where's my mouse here? It's not going to the right place. There it is. All right, so I did put down here in our notes, zoom in and out is Control plus and minus, copy is Control C, Control V is paste. And then I also added one here that we haven't really talked about, panning. All right, as you zoom in really close, instead of using the scroll bars to move around, you can, now I have the type tool selected, so I want to go to the selection tool. But now if I hold the space bar, my cursor turns to a hand, and then I can left click and drag. So this is panning, which saves you the time of going down and scrolling. I know the mouse wheel can be helpful, but that's, you know, just for navigation around when you zoom in, panning can be helpful. All right, but we got our type in there. All right, so that's just typing that in. And then we have some effects that we can apply, as we see here with our arcing. All right, so as the directions say, I'm going to select the text with the black arrow, and these arrows are kind of like the next step. All right, so when you see this, and I do want you to have the directions in here, so you can copy those from the notes. Unless you're a really fast typer, which I'm not really, I would definitely suggest just copying and pasting from the notes page. All right, so we're going to take our Illustrator text, we're going to go up to Effect, we're going to say stylize, I'm sorry, oh, I can't see on that screen. Warp, that's what I want. Yep, that was in my directions, wasn't it?
Yep.
And you could do arc upper or lower. I mean, for your own designs, maybe you'll find that you do other things. Let's just keep it. Actually, I think I did arc upper here. I kind of like the way that looks, where the bottom is flat and the top is kind of more curved. And then you can see, you get a live preview, and you can make that bend more. You could actually kind of start distorting the other directions, or you could even do it in the vertical direction. That would kind of bend the sides. But let's keep it horizontal. I think that makes kind of a nice title to that. And then just press OK. All right. I'm going to increase my size a little too, so this actually becomes a title. And I'm going to change my font to something that I think is a little more decorative, a little more so it's more eye-catching, which we should be doing for a title. All right, so that's kind of a little more bolded. All right, so to start here, I'm going to just zoom out, and then I'll come around and I will help, or just see if anybody is a little off on there. Kind of give it a little more emphasis through size. And then I'm going to go to those notes, and I'm going to just say, I'm going to copy this. All right, so where did I have that? Thought I had that in here. Artboards. Oh, all right. I don't see it in there, so instead of everybody typing it, I can go into here. I'll just copy it, and then I'll paste it into the notes for everybody. All right, so we'll say text effects, because this is kind of like more generalized. There are other options in there. All right, so you can just copy and paste that from the notes here and put it into your Illustrator file. And so I would just go copy, Control C, and then come to our working document. We'll just make a nice little text box there and paste. All right. You'll notice that the text is not exactly fitting in here. So we can go into here, and I can do, actually that's another good keyboard shortcut. Control A will select all. Even though I don't see all the text in here, I know there's more. So if I do a select all, then it's going to select the things that aren't even visible and still apply whatever we're doing to them. All right. You can, so I'm decreasing the point size. You can also just use that black arrow, and you could just extend the box so it allows for more of that text to be visible. I'm going to make this kind of not as pronounced. You know, we see that we have a line continuation, so maybe we would want to extend that out so it doesn't carry over to the next line. All right. And lastly for this part, let's get our names in there. Because you're going to print these in the end, and we need to know whose are whose when they come out, right? Because they're probably going to look relatively similar. Maybe make that a little bit bigger. And you can kind of have fun with fonts if you want. All right. And then the last thing here before we move on, we always want to save periodically. Somebody's file didn't save, they kind of lost what they did yesterday. We don't want that to happen. Probably not a big deal from what we did yesterday, but we want to try to eliminate that. Anytime you see an asterisk next to your file name, and I know it's very small on here, all right, but I'm looking up here on the file name. If you see the little asterisk, that means you've made changes since, or you have not saved since your last change. So we always want to get in the habit of just kind of doing something and then saving. I'm calling this Illustrator practice. You could put it in your multimedia folder or in your trading card, something like that. All right, so that's where we should be at this point, and I'll do a little status check here. All right, so looking at this, let's just check one other thing too. I did mention And I think, actually, did I put anything in here about the artboards? Yeah, so this next thing here, so the artboard tool allows you to create additional pages. Also check your document size. So if we click over here, so I put a little screenshot of that icon, and I'll show you how you can create those also, because I think it's very useful to know which tool on your toolbar we're actually talking about to do this, right? Because if you forget where this tool is, then it doesn't really help you to kind of know or to talk about it. So this icon on your toolbar, all right, when you click it, it kind of highlights your page. And for this practice activity, your artboard should be 8.5 by 11. Now I'm seeing a lot of you making the mistakes of putting in the values in your X and your Y. That X and Y is your position, your location within the workspace, all right? So that's not going to change your document size. The W and the H is what is going to change. So please make sure that your document size is 8.5 wide, 11 for your height. If you're not seeing inches, you may need to change your units, which I kind of saw in a couple people also. If that's the case where it says PT, things are not going to be really in the right proportion probably. So we can go to Edit, Preferences, and then Units, somewhere in here. I think there it is. All right, and we would just change our general to inches instead of points. So please check your artboard and make sure that you have 8.5 by 11. We can add that as a text item. All right, copy and paste that. And let me just show you how to take a screenshot on a PC. All right, so to get this little icon, a picture of it, we're going to go to the Start menu and we're going to type in snip. All right, it's like a little scissor on a circle kind of thing. Once you press that, this little pop-up comes up and we can say new, and then we're just going to basically highlight what we want to take a picture of. So in this case, it would be the artboard tool. And you see I'm highlighting it there. All right, then I'm going to say copy, and then I can just come back into here and I can paste. All right, so now we have a graphic image, basically, or a representation of what that artboard tool is, so that as we're seeing it here or talking about it, we can visualize what the tool is also, all right? So, you know, if you're making, and then how that applies, so this is our basically our one page. If I click on the artboard, you know, again, we see how we can change the size, but you could also make another one just by clicking and dragging. All right, and then you press escape or enter, and that will get you kind of out of that mode. All right, I don't really need another one now, so I'm just going to kind of take that out. All right, so that's taking a screenshot, which is also very helpful. You know, if you're trying to document your work and you don't have time to export it or something, a screenshot is a really quick way to kind of show what you've done and for some proof of that. All right, let me just pause this and then I'll catch up with everybody. All right, so the next thing I think we're going to do is to work on the rectangle. All right, so that will be the next thing we're going to do here. So it says we have a rectangle that's 2.5 by 3.5, and then we'll get into applying that texture to it, all right? So we did talk about using our shapes yesterday. Again, I'm panning. I went back to the black arrow so I can pan. I don't want to zoom out because then I can't see the detail. I want to stay close and see all this, but I want to kind of scroll up to my empty area. So I'm going to go to my shape tool. I'm going to choose a rectangle. Now, we can click and drag and put in the size afterwards, but since we know the size, I can just do a single left click, and you can see that it asks us, we can put in that size right from the start. So I can say 2.5 by 3.5. That was the size of our trading card. All right, so we have that shape put in there. Just kind of center it there. And let's see, did I give you a specific color of this? All right, so this is the outer box we're working on here. I thought I did. Shape tool, press up. All right, so that's that thing down there. That's the gradient. All right, I guess let's just try to do like a lighter color because we're not going to be able to really see that. Remember, we can get to our color by double-clicking the fill color either from the toolbar or over in your properties panel.
I got a question.
Yes.
For a color gradient, what's the color code for it?
I thought I put that in there, no?
The one you have for the rectangle and the one you have for the gradient are the same.
Where did I put the rectangle color? I could have sworn I had that in here somewhere.
It's on there, it's in the rectangle. It says fill color.
Oh, there we go. So that should really be up there. All right. So I thought, all right, so, because I wanted to talk about these hexadecimal values that is a way of putting in color, all right? So that is in there. So what we can do here, actually, and maybe I'll put it in the notes if it helps. I'm going to just highlight this here. I'm going to copy it. So if we're choosing this color, and this is something, you know, your clients, when you have some, you know, or you work for somewhere, they will give you specific colors. So if I click on the fill here, I can then get to my hexadecimal by looking at WebSafe RGB. This is the hexadecimal down here. All right, so that's one way to do it. I can also double click on my fill color down here, and then the hexadecimal just pops up right in the bottom. So I have a tendency of using the fill button from our toolbar more so than going to the properties panel. All right, so that is our code, which I'll put into the notes for today. That way, if you want to copy and paste instead of trying to read that, let's see. Fill color, I'm going to just say IE, for example, and this is the one we're going to use there, right? So it's like EFA, or EFF, oh man, my eyes aren't working so good, A95 or something. I do have pretty good vision, but I don't know why I can't really see that today. So you can go to the notes and copy and paste that bottom line, and you'll have that color there. All right, so we have a size, and you can also check your size in your properties so I can see. So if you didn't make that rectangle by clicking, and if instead you dragged one and you need to make your sizes exact, you can do it in your property inspector. So that would be here 2.5, 3.5, and then again if I went to my my fill option here, come on, I can paste that hexadecimal value. Why is it called hexadecimal? What does hexa mean? 6, right? There are 6 digits on this color code, all right? So that's where they're coming up with that name. All right, a little explanation behind there. All right, so we have that fill color, which you don't necessarily have to have on here, but it kind of as a direction. I think though that we should kind of try to get the same thing. Let's see. So I'm just there it was. All right, so I did have it in that explanation there. And then we're going to apply a texture to it, so that we have maybe a little feeling that, or the implied feeling we get to that. So for that, we're going to go to effect, just like we did before with the warping. But now we're going to go down to texture and texturizer. When you do that, you have a pop-up window and you have a lot of different options, all right? So we're doing this as an activity here, kind of doing the same thing, but maybe for your design, I would think you'd want to go through and choose and play around. You can see you have burlap as your texture, bricks, you have canvas and sandstone. And from all those, you can adjust the spacing, this relief, as it's called, and I guess, what's this, the light? Yeah, kind of where that's coming from. All right, they give you a little preview there. I don't really care which one you pick, but I do want it to be noticeable. Alright, so play around with that a little bit. I kind of like that one there, the mosaic tiles. So if we press OK, then that applies to our color. Alright, so that gives us something with a little more kind of implied feeling to it. Alright, I'm going to take my rectangle, which I think is all... Is that in the notes? Did I get that information in there? I think I did add for the texturizer. That's really what's the main point there. I don't think it's really that necessary to have the size of that in there. But I did write text... nope, alright. So that would probably go under our fill color. So I'm going to say apply texture. So we're going to go to effect and then texture and then texturizer. Alright, so that's in there now. You can copy and paste. Alright, the little lines I think are useful to use now to kind of diagram. So that's in the shape tool. Just press and hold the rectangle or whatever shape you have selected, and then we can drag that down. Now I believe by default it comes out as it has no thickness to it, so you do have to adjust and give it at least a 1-point stroke to that. Alright, so this line, again, when we first draw it, and I mean you can look, actually it does have a stroke there, but we can see if we just go like that, or if it was not showing up at first, I'll just try to simulate that. Actually, I guess I can say no stroke. Where's that option? Alright, so if you didn't see it, it's probably because there's no stroke applied to it. You just have to kind of hover over it and then make that 1 point. Carolyn? You're not finding the tool, or it's just not... It's not in the grouping? Okay.
If you go down to where the
Yeah.
three dots are,
That's usually what happens. You have to... Alright, so the next is our gradient. So we're going to start, we can just make a rectangle, because that's kind of the shape that we have there. And then on our fill, or on our toolbar, I can see right now there's no fill color applied to that. So what I want to do is, it's very small, it's hard to see on the screen, but underneath your fill and your stroke, you're going to see 3 squares there. Alright, the one on the left is our fill color. So if we were to select that black box, which is underneath your fill and stroke, that's going to fill it with a solid color. Alright, if I went on the right, it's got the line through it, that means there's no fill applied. Or if I select the middle one, now we get a gradient applied. Alright, so I know it's very hard to see on the screen up here, but if you see where my laser is, you should be able to see a little icon there that looks just like this gradient, and then when you click it, it should apply this color which fades from one to another. Alright, anybody need help finding that or want me to wait? Yeah, it's a very small little box there. So we made a new box, which I didn't want this to be a certain color there, and then the texture applied to it. So we're not using the gradient tool, we're just making a new shape. So select your line and press that down, and then get back to the rectangle. Press and hold it, because right now we're just making a line. Make a box. Use that middle one. Actually, you're unsure of what it is. so much for taking 15 to 20 minutes. All right. So to change this gradient, all right, we can, again, select this box, and then, let's see, does it pop up automatically? We would want to open our gradient palette, all right? So if you're not seeing that, you would go to Window and select Gradient. All right, and now we have, these are called sliders, all right? So why don't you guys look up here just so you can kind of see how this gradient works, and then we can start adjusting it. So if I move these sliders, it's going to adjust the endpoint, right? So the gradient is changing from white to black. So if I wanted more black, you can see that that transition is shifting, all right, and we're having more of one color. I can also use the diamond on the top. That's going to be another way to shift that, and it's a little more gradual that way. We can just, if we wanted to introduce another color, we can just left click in there. So it's going to just make another slider, and then if we double click it, it's going to bring up our color picker again. This one by default though, it's only black and white, right? So you have to kind of click this more option and go to RGB if we're doing on screen, or if we wanted to get a full color slider, we can do CMYK, and then we can just pick one of the colors here, and that's going to apply it to the slider. All right, so, and if you have extras, you can just take the slider and drag it down. All right, so if I decided I don't want that purple in there anymore, I just left click this little circle and drag it off. All right, so basically to start, we're just going to double click the slider. We can use the little fly out, the more option, go to CMYK, and you can pick a color to go in there. So I could do that. I can also make a copy of this slider. I think if I do an Alt left click drag, yep, it makes me another one. All right, and then I could kind of play around with this little transitional thing there, and kind of get that to flow a little more evenly instead of having that hard line in the middle.
My gradient got messed up, and also I couldn't figure out how to get the color onto it.
Okay, I'll be right there. The last thing is the kind of the direction. Right now it's kind of going purple, white. It's going left to right. It's transitioning. You also do have your angle. So if we change this to 90, then we will have the colors transitioning the other way, top to bottom. All right. I'm going to take off my stroke by selecting the stroke, getting rid of that line, and I think the last thing I had here, we had this box kind of, the edge is kind of blurred, all right, in this example. So I'm going to choose my box, my shape. I'm going to go to Effect, Stylize, oh, not Stylize, where is, I don't know if I have that in the directions. Did I put that over there? Where is that? Shape tool, gradient. So let's see, where was that? There it is. All right. There's actually two stylize on this effect, which makes things kind of confusing at times. But that's how we get that blur edge. I'll write that in there also. All right. So this blurred edge is called feathering. And for that, we go to Effect and then Stylize, and then we can apply that, that feathering, which blurs your edge. You can increase or decrease that sizing in there. So yeah, let's make a new box here. I'll add that. Again, you don't have to use all these things, but I'm trying to show you enough things so that you're not limited by your skills. All right, so we're going to say blur edge will be Effect, Stylize, and then feather. Gonna make this box a little bit bigger. Nope. Come on, get out of this editing mode. Go to window and then I don't know what I don't know what you pressed. I forget what that is.
Bars, and then it go over here, so like this kind of comes up with this.
Wait, click on that. No, see how you can go, yeah, click on that.
Oh.
Wait, go to the very top and you gotta get that.
That turns it off, I guess.
I don't know why the top of your screen is gone.
I don't need to, I was trying to figure it out. I don't know why you like click that.
Oh, you want to look at the top of his screen is gone.
Yeah, he pressed something and I forget. I gotta.
I was on here and then all of a sudden I look back and I'm like, oh shit, I pressed something. So it's down.
I have no idea. I'll look that up. See, this is what I'm saying. Adobe just hates people.
Now I'm bad at this, that's why.
It's Adobe.
I'm bad.
There's all kinds of keyboard shortcuts, and you don't realize when you're pressing things. All right, so to make this, we're going to start with the shape tool again. We're going to go from the line. We'll start maybe with the ellipse. I'm going to hold the shift key so I have a perfect circle, rather than if I don't hold the shift, then we can get like ovals, which, you know, isn't the end of the world, but most times we do want to have symmetrical circles. I have it as a gradient. Doesn't, maybe would start as a solid or a no fill, but I don't think it should matter too much. Then I'm going to add a rectangle. All right. Stop doing that. All right, I'm going to kind of overlap them. Let's zoom in a little bit. And it'll snap into position so that they're the same height. Now that looks like it's kind of joined those shapes, but we can see that they're still like separate. And maybe, because maybe I would only want to have the outside of that shape. So actually, you know what, let's do that. Let's, for starters here, we're going to make it no fill and a stroke. All right, so we can really see how this stuff is applying. So again, I can use my toolbar here. I can kind of flip that. The last shape is kind of like a twisted shape. There's a couple ways we can do this. Let's try to find the easiest way. I think this is it on the bottom. Is that my, yeah. So on the bottom I have, of my toolbar under the magnifying glass, I have a free transform tool. This works if we wanted to scale out an image, or in the case here, I think, right, I can kind of shear it. So if I select, I'm selecting that free transform tool, and then if I click the middle dot, I can kind of slant it here. All right, then I would go back to my arrow and kind of get it to size correctly.
How did you get the rectangle alignment down the middle of the circle? Because I'm trying to line it up.
Well, it's just the circle is placed over the rectangle. All right, so you had two shapes. And that's because that's what we're going to learn how to do, is combine these to make it all one. All right, so I have a circle, a rectangle, and this transformed square by using that free transform tool. Anybody need help making any of those shapes? The last one? Sure. So I started with the rectangle. Then on the bottom of my toolbar, I have this free transform tool. And then I just select this middle circle and I just kind of drag it to the right. So that's going to distort it in that way. Turtle, was that your question? The free transform's not showing up? You can try, if it's not showing up, click the 3 dots, and then kind of like we were looking for that line segment, you should find it somewhere, and then you would just drag it into your toolbar. In the classroom, I'd like you to go back and get the Pokeball that I have in there. All right, download this, right? So, or you might even just be able to, no, you can't copy the image. Why is this difficult? Can we do save link as? No. Open link in new tab. Can try that too. All right, so that might be an easier way, because this PNG, it's asking us to use a program to open it. So what I did was I said open in new tab. All right, and then I can go up here and I can just then download it from there. All right, so we do have this image. All right, you can put it to the desktop. This is not something you really need to save forever. All right, once it's downloaded, to bring into Illustrator, who remembers how we bring a picture into Illustrator? We did this with our photos yesterday, right? I think. Or no, we didn't bring pictures in. I think I did that with PM. So we're going to say File, Place. All right, that's how we bring another image into Illustrator. So I'm going to place this image into here. This works kind of like text. If I just do a single click, it brings it in full size, which in this case not too bad. But you might want to do File, Place, and then kind of draw a box for where you want it to be, or how the size of it. Let me go to this one. All right, so File, Place, and I'm going to select that. Kind of draw it down here. We got that. All right, so the whole point of what we're going to do next with image tracing is, number one, to turn your image from raster to vector, so that it would be scalable. And then also it's going to be editable, because in my final example here, you notice that the Pokeball is green instead of red. All right. Anybody have any problems downloading, placing that picture in there? Charlie? So, okay. All right, so again, we placed this image in here, and then we're going to go to Image Trace, and let's do High Fidelity Photo. All right, why don't everybody do that and let me know if you get stuck with that. It really shouldn't change your image too much, and that's what we want, because when we convert it from raster to vector, we want it to be pretty much exactly how it was originally. Questions? Repeats? Charlie? File, the File menu, and then Place. So now that it's actually traced it, now we have to do Expand. This then turns it into separate parts, but it's still grouped, so we can't like modify anything individually. So on our quick action, then we're going to ungroup. All right, and then, you know, to edit this red area, I'm going to deselect just by clicking anywhere else, and if I click on the red, I can then go in there and remove those areas. All right, and change that color. One thing though with this too is we have these images that come from the internet, and by default, or when we trace them, a lot of times they have a white background. All right, so, and I can just for demonstration and to show you what I'm talking about, where's my order? Arrange, send to back. All right, so I can see when I traced it, it traced not only the artwork, but also the background. So a lot of times you just have to go in there and delete that, and then, you know, you have that left by itself. So to then get this into our document, you'll notice that it's traced all these different parts, and they're individually editable, so you can change colors and things like that. So I'm going to probably, when I move it though, I don't want to move things separately, so I'm going to kind of do a box selection, and then I can group by right-clicking I think we have a group option in there. Yep. And group. So now if I click on it, it all moves together, and we can see that there's no box around it. So this should be pretty helpful for when you're doing like your little icons and stuff to complement your images. You can find an image online. I would suggest too, when you're searching, look for vector images though, because they're not going to have a lot of shading and the tracing will be quicker. But you know, this will allow you to remove backgrounds. You can, you know, it'll be a nice clean image, and you can change colors and things like that. All right, questions on the image trace?
Does the Pokeball cutter top have to be the same as the one in the...
No, as long as it's not red. That way I know that you did change it.
What if it's like partially red, like multicolored?
Like a gradient even?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that would be noticeable. All right, so the last, sorry, go ahead, any others?
So that's okay that it's
Yeah.
gradient?
Mm-hmm. The last thing is getting our picture into a shape. All right, so we're going to place our picture that we took yesterday or the other day. So file place, and I think this is the last thing other than just exporting it. So then we'll have time, I can come around and help people kind of catch up. So we're going to go to our personal drive, right? And we're going to find our trading card folder. And just like with the other picture, like maybe we would click and drag to define the size of it. Oh, we didn't take the background out. Shoot. All right, right? We didn't get to that yesterday.
No, we did.
We did do that?
Yeah.
Okay. So I couldn't remember if we did that. So we want to place that, the PNG file though, right? Not the original JPEG. So if I place that, now we're not going to have the background, which is what we want. All right, I'm just going to drag this to the side so I can work on this kind of independently. You can lock certain portions. So like, you know, if I went in here and if I did a box selection, it's going to get everything. But like if I didn't want these things to be selected, you can go up to Object and say Lock Selection. And there's ways to lock that down, but not totally critical now. I mean, as you can see, there's a lot of things to talk about and we can learn about in Illustrator. I am trying to keep it simple, if you can believe that. But you know, there's still a lot of stuff to learn, right? And you have to get practice. But so we have our picture in there. Let's then go and grab either any shape really, because we want to put our picture in a shape. Oh, that's a polygon. Let's do. I want to do an oval this time. I did a star on the example. All right, so all I'm going to do then is place a shape over my picture. I'm going to select both. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say, is it in the right click option? I thought it was. I'm looking for, oh there it is, make clipping mask. Boom, all right. Now at first it doesn't look like that really did anything because I kind of lost my color here. So I can give my shape a solid color, or maybe I flip it and just have like the fill and stroke. But then, so now I have the picture, but you know, I probably want to move it down, right? So if I double click it, we're going to start seeing what's called this isolation mode, all right? So if you ever see your screen kind of gray out around and only one thing is in full color, it's because you double clicked and you've isolated on that. We can get out of that by going up on the top here and just going back and kind of getting out of that isolation mode. But now it moves all together. So in this case, I really do want to have that. So if I double click, now I can move my picture in there and I can even scale it. But you can see it's not going beyond my circle, which is pretty cool, I think, right? So that'd be the last thing with the clipping mask. Right, Cal, redo.
I tried to bring my PNG over to my thing, and it's saying the file cannot be read.
You placed or you opened?
I placed,
Okay.
and I tried to open it, and
All right.
it's working with my original image, the one with the green screen. It's just not working with the one where it clicked
Okay.
out.
Let me just wrap this up and then we'll start individually looking. All right, so those would be all the parts on this. All right, those are all the lessons we're doing. I think that's going to give you a lot of tools kind of to available in order to create all kinds of things for your trading card. There may be exceptions. There might be something I have to work on individually, but you know, I think now that you know how to do fill colors, you can apply textures, you can image trace, shape building I think is another really important ability, text warping, all these things to add all these details. Again, in the end, I do want to see it kind of with all the notes and stuff. We don't have school tomorrow, so if we need a little bit of time on Friday to work on this, that's fine. But I think we can probably get, you know, I'm hoping I can work with you to get at least the practice done today, and then Friday we'll be all working on your own trading card, kind of just like a shop day, no lecture, and just getting your own work done. All right.